2 p.m. Saturday at Waco's McLean Stadium. The John Tyler Lions will take on one of the hottest teams in the state. And we are joined by the head coach of one of the hottest teams in the state, the Klein Collins Tigers. So we are joined by Coach Drew Svoboda. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
How are things in beautiful Klein?
Oh, they're fantastic. We're still practicing football and enjoying this nice weather, and so everything's going good.
I'm interested in obviously this is a different week. Kids are geeked up about Thanksgiving as they should be. They get a little bit of time off, stuff like that. How do you balance the keeping in the kind of normal practice routine with the fact that this is kind of an abnormal week?
Well, I think you just do your best at it. I mean, we don't have the athletic period, and it's all kind of one big practice session. It's pretty similar to how we start the year off, that week we get before school starts. So, this time of the year, you really don't, you're probably trimming down and doing some tapering on practice times. And so that naturally kind of takes care of itself. But, you just kind of rework it. I mean, these guys are, I guess they get a little bit of a taste about what being a pro football player is all about when all you do is show up and practice football, watch some video, and then when you go home, you just get a little bit of time to yourself. So, but you do your best.
Very business-like, I imagine.
Not bad. That's a good gig.
I want to take you back to September 3rd. September 3rd, you guys travel to Rhodes Stadium in Katy, and, a defending state champ. You guys go up and give Katy everything they want, take them to double overtime, end up losing by 1 point. Still your lone loss on the year. I'm interested, what do you think you learned about your team from that loss? Because I feel like you can learn more from adversity than you can from success.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is what I learned about them is they're going to fight. I mean, they're a group who's going to persevere because that game really went back and forth for most of the game, and so that was probably the first thing. I knew what kind of fight they had, and then just being able to, Katie's going to make you work for absolutely everything that they're going to make you earn it, and and then going into overtime. I mean, early in the year, you'd love as a coach to be able to guarantee every year that in pre-district you actually went into overtime at least once, so the kids really, understand how overtime works. I mean, a lot of them hadn't been in it and didn't really understand that. That they just, unless you've really been in it, you maybe have seen it on TV, and some of them probably still think that, the NFL overtime applies to them, and so just being in an overtime game, period, regardless of who you're against, is an invaluable experience. And then just the confidence you get. I mean, when you go against Katy and how they're going to challenge you physically and scheme-wise, and to go to their stadium and really play as well as we did, where it came down to a 2-point conversion, it gave us confidence. And sometimes, like you said, a loss, you learn more from it. But, if you'd have won that game, I really don't know how we'd have handled it. We'd have been so fired up and probably felt so good about ourselves that maybe the little things that we had to address might not have had the same impact as they did the next day when we watched it on videotape.
You guys, last week against previously unbeaten Round Rock Cedar Ridge, you guys, they're in the fourth quarter, you guys have a 27-6 lead, and it looks like you guys are just going to cruise to victory. And Cedar Ridge storms back and forces overtime with you guys. Before that overtime period, what was your message to your kids, knowing full well that, they saw what happened? They saw the score kind of get away from them and having to force overtime. What was your message to your Tigers before that overtime period?
Well, I think what was critical, what happened right before overtime was important. So when they came back and tied it up at 27, we went down and scored right away, and then they scored again to match it. But the momentum had kind of been snatched back. I mean, they had a lot of momentum, but if we had not scored again before overtime, I think to kind of stop the bleeding a little bit, it might have been a different story. So, but anyhow, so that happened, and really, we just fell back on the Katy experience, because Cedar Ridge had not been in an overtime game this year. They really hadn't had a close game. The Round Rock game was close for a while, but they still scored almost 60 points in that game. So, and not that we had an advantage or whatever, but I just knew that my guys had been there, and we had, we just knew how, how final. That overtime deal. It goes back to when Katy went for 2, and we stood there, and we had already scored, and they went for 2 in the second overtime, really before you technically have to. And talk about feeling like your hands are tied. We're standing there going, okay, if they get this, the game's over. I mean, it's over no matter what. And so I think the finality of it really sunk into my guys. But, guys, it's do or die at this point. And, we made a play. They started on offense first, and my nose guard stripped the running back of the football. And at that point, you say because hindsight's 20/20, but I really felt like my team was going to not be denied at that point. Once we got into overtime.
I want to give you an opportunity to brag on some of your kids because I'll admit. So I was doing the Fox Football Friday show on Fox Sports Southwest, and I'm sitting there. We were having a live look into your game. They're in that overtime period, as you guys are just running and running and running. Your quarterback Powers, was able to. He pretty much didn't let go of the ball. Bryson Powers on going. I'm sitting there next to Coach Ken Purcell, who's been around the block a time or two. And we came back on the air, and he goes, if those big boys up front want an extra chicken fry at dinner tonight, they get it. Your offensive line just grinded them into dust, and that's kind of been the MO of your team all year. Your offensive line has played so well.
They are, and I'll tell you, there's another backstory to that. So the second play of the game, Bryson Powers, he hurt his MCL. He sprained his MCL. He was injured, and so he left the game. He did not play a snap really in that game at all until overtime. We put a brace on him, and he said, "Coach, I can go." And he was our quarterback for most of the year, and so he went in that overtime period with a grade 2 sprained MCL and a knee brace that we basically made on the sideline because the one we had didn't fit, and he just, so it was just really and he just grinded them out, and that O-line and that fullback and just really everybody. We were not going to hand the ball off. We went 8 straight plays on quarterback run with an injured football player who said, "I can do it, Coach." And he's going to Harvard, so he's a pretty complete young man. And anyhow, we just rode his back, and he rode those O-linemen, and sometimes you just got to have the will to get it done.
We're talking with Drew Svoboda, the head coach of the 11-1 Klein Collins Tigers here on DCTF Live. Get involved in the conversation at #DCTF Live. And Coach, the guy who's really been the beneficiary behind that big offensive line has been DeAnthony Doyle, a guy who's run for more than 1,500 yards. He's had a remarkable season. For maybe folks who aren't familiar with your outstanding running back, what can you tell us about him?
Well, he's a kid that last year really he was a backup on the varsity as a junior. I had a great running back, a 2,000-yard rusher, and Justin Pratt. He was actually a back-to-back 2,000-yard rusher. And when Justin graduated, DeAnthony, it was his opportunity, and he waited patiently. And he's just a electric kid. He's a unbelievable young man. He's about 5'5", 155 pounds. So he's a little guy, but he's extremely strong and tough and just durable. And he'll block, he'll catch, he'll run, he'll do kind of whatever. And it's just such a pleasure to be able to coach a guy like him. He's just all smiles all the time. He doesn't get all upset if he's not running the ball enough, and he's really just been a fantastic part of what we're doing this year.
And your defense has been consistently excellent all year long. Basically, if you remove that Katy game that goes into 2 overtimes, and there's a lot of teams that give up 50 points to Katy, you guys are pretty much holding people to under 10 points a game. What's the key been for your defense to be so good this year?
Well, it's a real high. Their football IQ is exceptional. It's just a real cohesive unit. They really understand it. My defensive coordinator, Lonnie Madison, does a great job with them. Here's a stat for you. So in the 8 district games they played, the starting defense only gave up 2 touchdowns in 8 games.
That's a good district, too.
Good district.
Yeah. That's exactly. And so that was really something that was pretty remarkable that they were able to do. They just fit real well. We run a 3-4 defense, and we're pretty conservative, so to speak. We don't blitz a whole lot, but these kids read their keys and they play fast. But probably bigger than everything else is they just really understand what their assignments are. They just have high football IQ, and that really drives everything.
2 p.m. Saturday at Waco's McLean Stadium. The Klein Collins Tigers will take on the John Tyler Lions in a 6A Division II regional semifinal. Coach, I know you guys have been hard at work preparing for Cujo. Not going to ask you to give away your game plan or anything like that, but when you take a look at what you're up against on Saturday, what do you see? What are the keys for you guys to come out with a win?
Well, offensively, they're just so explosive. They average 500 yards a game. And the quarterback, Smith is just unbelievable. He's a guy who I think I saw where he broke the school rushing record, but yet he's also thrown for well over 2,000 yards. So he really makes the whole thing go. And then the receivers are extremely talented. They've got a kid committed to Texas and a bunch of other guys that are really good. And, so they're just wide open on offense, and the defense, they're extremely fast and really what you would expect from a John Tyler football team. I mean, they're, they've only got one loss on the year, and that was in a shootout against a Rockwall team that, that traditionally has always been pretty good. So definitely, it's a rematch. We played these guys in 2009 in Waco, and, it was a heck of a game then. So I've got a little bit of experience against them, but, there's a lot of new faces and coaches over there. But, it's at this point in the year, all the bad teams are not playing anymore, of course.
There are no turkeys after Thanksgiving, as they say.
That's right.
And that leads me into my final and perhaps most important question. What are the plans in the Svoboda household for Thanksgiving?
Well, we're actually the host, so after we practice and that morning, I've got everybody coming to my house, and my dad's going to pick some food up, and I think we're going to go like a barbecue-style Thanksgiving.
Ooh.
So
after my own heart.
That's the plan.
I'll be right there. So
we'll be there
if you want to
too.
send me the address, I'll be there.
There you go.
He is Coach Drew Svoboda. He is the head coach of the 11-1 Klein Collins Tigers, taking on John Tyler 2 p.m. Saturday at Waco's McLean Stadium. Coach, appreciate your time. I know you're busy. Happy Thanksgiving, and best of luck on Saturday.
Awesome. Appreciate the time, guys. Take care.